Before I let the video start, I want to tell you something. Follow my YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Please let's reach to 1,000 each channel if you were enjoying the stories. Let me know in the comments on my videos on TikTok. Emma took a deep breath of the crisp, mountain air as she adjusted the straps of her backpack. The winding trail ahead beckoned her, snaking up through the evergreen forest towards the rocky summit in the distance. This was her favorite hiking trail, one she had traveled many times before, but it never failed to fill her with a sense of adventure and peace. As she started up the path, her boots crunched over the carpet of fallen pine needles. The morning sun filtered through the canopy of branches overhead, casting a warm, dappled glow. Emma smiled, letting the hushed tranquility of the woods envelop her. Out here, the stresses of everyday life seemed to melt away. The trail began a steady ascent, and she settled into a rhythmic pace. Her mind wandered, mulling over the big work project she had coming up and pondering what to make for dinner that night. But those thoughts soon faded into the background as she became immersed in the sights, smells, and sounds of nature. A squirrel skittered across the path in front of her, stopping to eye her briefly with its inquisitive black eyes before scampering up a tree trunk. Emma laughed softly, amused by the little creature's antics. Further up ahead, a red-tailed hawk soared effortlessly on the warm thermal currents, high above the treetops. As the trail climbed higher, it grew steeper and more challenging. Emma concentrated on her footfalls, picking her way carefully over the rocky, uneven terrain. Her calves burned with exertion, but she felt invigorated, alive. She loved pushing her body to conquer the mountain path. At last, Emma crested the summit ridge. The view took her breath away, as it always did. A vast panorama stretched out before her, with row after row of forested peaks fading into the hazy distance. She plopped down onto a flat, sun-warmed rock, letting her gaze roam over the majestic landscape as she caught her breath. Emma felt so small amid such grandeur, yet somehow more connected to the world around her. Up here, she was reminded of what truly mattered: the beauty of nature, the simplicity of being alive in that moment. A contented smile played across her lips. The winding trail had led her home. Story 2. In the heart of Kyoto, where ancient traditions intertwined with modern life, a young woman named Akiko found solace beneath the canopy of cherry blossoms. As the gentle breeze carried the fragrant petals through the air, she couldn't help but feel a deep connection to the fleeting beauty that surrounded her. Akiko had grown up in the city, her childhood filled with stories of samurai warriors and imperial princesses. She had always been drawn to the rich tapestry of Japanese culture, and the sakura trees held a special place in her heart. Each spring, she would eagerly await the arrival of the cherry blossoms, their delicate pink hues painting the city in a dreamlike haze. It was during this time that Akiko felt most alive, as if the spirits of her ancestors were whispering secrets through the falling petals. One particular evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Akiko found herself in a secluded garden, surrounded by the ethereal glow of lanterns. The sakura trees were in full bloom, their branches heavy with the weight of their ephemeral beauty. As she sat beneath one of the ancient trees, Akiko closed her eyes and allowed the gentle rustling of the petals to lull her into a state of tranquility. In that moment, she could almost hear the whispers of the sakura, telling tales of love, loss, and the fleeting nature of life itself. It was then that she understood the true essence of the cherry blossoms, a reminder to cherish every moment, for beauty is often fleeting, but its impact can last a lifetime. From that day forward, Akiko carried the sakura's whisper in her heart, a constant reminder to embrace the present and appreciate the simple joys that life has to offer. Just as the cherry blossoms bloom in all their glory, only to scatter in the wind, leaving behind a trail of memories and wonder. Story 3. In the heart of Tokyo's labyrinthine alleys, a legend whispered through the shadows, sending chills down the spines of those brave enough to listen. It spoke of a figure known as the Crimson Mask, a vengeful spirit that haunted the city's darkest corners. Akira, a young office worker, had always dismissed such tales as mere urban legends. That is, until the night he found himself lost in the maze of narrow streets, his footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. As he turned a corner, a figure emerged from the darkness, clad in a tattered crimson mask that concealed its face. Akira's heart pounded in his chest as the figure drew closer, its movements fluid and otherworldly. "You have trespassed into my domain," a raspy voice hissed from behind the mask. "Now, you must pay the price." Akira's legs trembled, and he stumbled backward, his mind racing to comprehend the horror unfolding before him. The crimson mask advanced, its presence suffocating, and Akira felt the weight of 1,000 restless souls bearing down upon him. In a desperate attempt to flee, he turned and ran, his footsteps echoing through the narrow alleys. But no matter how fast he ran, the sound of the crimson mask's footsteps pursued him, growing louder and closer with each passing moment. Akira's lungs burned, and his legs ached, but he dared not stop. He knew that if the crimson mask caught him, a fate worse than death awaited. As he rounded another corner, a dead end loomed before him, trapping him like a rat in a maze. He spun around, his back against the cold brick wall, and there it stood, the crimson mask, its presence suffocating and its eyes burning with an unholy fury. "There is no escape," the raspy voice taunted. "Your soul belongs to me now." Akira's screams echoed through the night, but no one came to his aid. The crimson mask advanced, its crimson mask, the last thing Akira saw before the darkness consumed him. From that night on, whispers of a new spirit haunting the alleys began to circulate, a lost soul forever bound to the crimson mask's curse. Story 4. In the heart of an ancient village nestled in the misty mountains of Japan, a dark legend had been whispered for generations. It was the tale of the cursed mask, a sinister artifact that had brought misfortune and tragedy to all who dared possess it. Takeshi, a young artist with a fascination for the macabre, had stumbled upon this legend during his research on traditional Japanese folklore. Intrigued by the stories, he set out to uncover the truth behind the cursed mask. Dismissing the warnings as mere superstition, his quest led him to a decrepit shrine hidden deep within the forest, where the mask was said to reside. With trembling hands, Takeshi lifted the dusty wooden box that contained the artifact, his heart pounding with anticipation. As he unveiled the mask, a chill ran down his spine. Carved from pale wood, it bore the twisted visage of a demonic entity, its hollow eyes seeming to stare into his very soul. Despite the unsettling aura it emanated, Takeshi's curiosity overpowered his apprehension, and he brought the mask home, eager to study its intricate details. That night, as Takeshi slept, he was plagued by nightmares of unimaginable horror. Twisted faces and disembodied voices tormented him, whispering of ancient curses and unspeakable rituals. He awoke in a cold sweat, convinced it was merely a product of his overactive imagination. But the terrors had only just begun. Strange occurrences soon manifested in Takeshi's life. Shadows seemed to move of their own accord, and eerie whispers echoed through the empty rooms of his studio. Brushes danced across canvases, leaving behind grotesque images that chilled him to the core. Desperate to break free from the curse, Takeshi sought the guidance of a local shaman, who warned him of the mask's malevolent power. The artifact, he explained, had been created centuries ago by a vengeful spirit, imbued with the ability to corrupt the souls of those who possessed it. With trembling hands, the shaman performed an ancient ritual, chanting incantations to banish the evil force that had taken hold of Takeshi's life. But as the final words left his lips, a sudden gust of wind extinguished the candles, plunging the room into darkness. In the eerie silence that followed, Takeshi felt a presence behind him, a cold breath on the back of his neck. Slowly, he turned to face the cursed mask, its hollow eyes now glowing with an unholy light. And in that moment, Takeshi knew that the curse had claimed him, body and soul, forever trapped in a waking nightmare from which there was no escape.